Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. OK, let's dive deep into handling Unicode strings within urllib requests and how it relates to common issues you might encounter on Stack Overflow. We'll cover encoding, decoding, URL encoding, potential pitfalls, and provide practical code examples. Understanding the landscape, Unicode, encoding, and urllib. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of urllib and Unicode, it's crucial to have a solid grasp of the underlying concepts. 1. Unicode, the universal character set asterisk. Unicode is a standard that assigns a unique number, a code point, to virtually every character used in written languages around the world. Think of it as a giant table that maps characters, letters, symbols, ideograms, emojis, etc., to numerical representations. For example, A has the code point U plus 0041. E has the code point U plus 00E9. Chinese for hello, has code points U plus 4F60 and U plus 597D. 2. Encoding, representing Unicode as bytes asterisk. Computers don't directly work with abstract Unicode code points. They work with bytes, sequences of zeros and ones. Encoding is the process of converting Unicode code points into a sequence of bytes. Common encodings asterisk. UTF-8 asterisk, a variable width encoding that's widely used on the internet. It uses 1 to 4 bytes to represent a Unicode character. It's efficient for English text, where characters are mostly represented by 1 byte, but can use more bytes for other languages. UTF-8 is the de facto standard encoding for web content. UTF-16 asterisk, another variable width encoding, often used internally by some operating systems and applications. It generally uses 2 or 4 bytes per character. Latin 1, ISO 8859-1, a single byte encoding that covers many Western European characters. It's a subset of Unicode, but it cannot represent characters from other languages. Avoid using this unless you have a very specific reason and are certain about the data you're dealing with. ASCII ** a 7-bit encoding that covers basic English characters, AZ, 0 to 9, punctuation. It's a subset of Unicode and UTF-8. 3. Decoding, representing bytes as Unicode asterisk. Decoding is the reverse of encoding. It's the process of converting a sequence of bytes back into Unicode code points. You must know the encoding used to create those bytes in order to decode them correctly. 4. urllib and Unicode asterisk. Urllib is Python's built-in library for making HTTP requests, and other URL-related operations. The core challenge is that urllib sends and receives data as bytes, not as Unicode strings directly. Therefore, you often need to encode your Unicode strings into bytes before sending them as part of a request, example in the URL, the query string, or the request body, and you need to decode the response body, which you receive as bytes, back into a Unicode string. 2. Encoding URLs and query strings with urllib.parse. A very common scenario is constructing URLs that contain Unicode characters, especially in query string parameters. urllib.parse provides tools for this. Explanation asterisk. 1. urllib.parse.quote_plus, asterisk. This function is essential for encoding data meant for the query string. It does the following. Replaces spaces with plus, as required by the query string format. Encodes special characters, like, $, %, caret, and, asterisk, equals, plus, comma, slash, with percent encoding, example %24 space, %21 4. 2. Encode, UTF-8, asterisk before passing the Unicode string to quote underscore plus, we must encode it into bytes using the UTF-8 encoding. This is crucial. 3. Building the URL asterisk, we then combine the base URL with the properly encoded query string. Important asterisk, always encode the Unicode string before using quote underscore plus. Quote underscore plus expects bytes as input. Alternative, urllib.parse.url_encode, for dictionaries. If you have your query parameters in a dictionary, url_encode is even more convenient. Explanation asterisk. 1. urllib.parse.url_encode, params, asterisk. This function takes a dictionary as input, where keys and values can be Unicode strings. It automatically encodes the strings using UTF-8, by default, and creates a query string in the correct format. Example: query equals plus %21 and category equals books and author equals John plus Doe. 2. Encode, UTF-8, asterisk. The url_encode function returns a byte string, so we need to decode it back to Unicode string using UTF-8 before concatenating with the base URL. 3. Making requests with urllib.request and handling responses. Now, let's look at how to send requests with urllib.request and deal with Unicode in the response. Explanation asterisk. 1. Encoding the data asterisk. If you are sending data in the request body, example a post request, you must encode the data using .encode, UTF-8, before passing it to urllib.request.request. 2. urllib.request.request asterisk. This creates a request object, allowing you to specify headers, the request method, get, post, etc., and the data to send. 3. urllib.request.urlopen, asterisk opens the URL and returns a response object. 4. response.read, asterisk reads the response body as bytes. 5. Determining the encoding asterisk. This is critical, you need to know the encoding of the response to decode it correctly. The best place to look is in the content type header of the response. The char set equals UTF-8 part tells you the encoding. If the content type header is missing or doesn't specify a char set, you have to make an educated guess. UTF-8 is a reasonable default for modern web content. However, be aware that some older sites might use Latin 1 or other encodings. 6. Decoding the response asterisk. Response underscore bytes.decode, encoding, decodes the response bytes into a Unicode string using the determined encoding. 7. Error handling asterisk. Unicode decode error, this is the error you'll see if you try to decode bytes using the wrong encoding. Errors equals ignore or errors equals replace, these are options you can pass to decode, to handle decoding errors. Ignore will skip problematic characters, and replace will replace them with a replacement character, usually. Use these with caution, as they can lead to data loss. It's better to determine the correct encoding if possible. 4. Common Stack Overflow issues and solutions. Here are some frequent Unicode-related problems you'll find on Stack Overflow and how to address them. 1. Unicode encode error, ASCII codec can't encode character, asterisk. Cause asterisk Python 2 has a default encoding of ASCII, which cannot represent most non-English characters. This error occurs when you try to implicitly encode a Unicode string using the ASCII encoding. Solution asterisk. The best solution is to migrate to Python 3, where UTF-8 is the default encoding. If you're stuck with Python 2, you need to be explicit about encoding and decoding. At the beginning of your script, add. Be sure to explicitly encode Unicode strings into bytes using encode, UTF-8, before passing them to urllib functions. Also, explicitly decode the responses using decode, UTF-8. 2. Emoji bake, garbled text. Cause asterisk this happens when you encode text using one encoding, example UTF-8, and then decode it using a different encoding, example Latin 1. The characters get misinterpreted, resulting in gibberish. Solution asterisk identify the correct encoding, check the content type header of the response. If you can't determine the encoding, try common encodings like UTF-8, Latin 1, or UTF-16 until you get a readable result. 3 URL encoding problems asterisk. Cause asterisk incorrectly encoding URLs or query string parameters. For example, not using urllib.parse.quote_plus, or trying to encode a Unicode string after it's been partially encoded. Solution asterisk. Always use urllib.parse.quote_plus, or urllib.parse.urlencode, to encode URLs. Ensure you encode the Unicode string into bytes before using the quote_plus or urlencode functions. Double check that you're not double encoding the URL. 4 Incorrectly handling HTML entities asterisk. Cause asterisk some websites use HTML entities, example and eqt, for e, to represent special characters. If you don't properly decode these entities, they will appear as literal text in your output. Solution asterisk use a library like HTML, built-in, or Beautiful Soup to decode HTML entities. V best practices. Asterisk always use UTF-8 asterisk it's the standard encoding for the web. Asterisk be explicit asterisk don't rely on implicit encoding/decoding. Explicitly use .encode, UTF-8, and .decode, UTF-8. Asterisk check content type asterisk the content type header is your best source for determining the correct encoding of a response. Asterisk handle errors asterisk be prepared for Unicode encode error and Unicode decode error exceptions. Asterisk use libraries asterisk leverage libraries like urllib.parse, HTML, and Beautiful Soup to simplify common tasks. Asterisk test thoroughly asterisk test your code with a variety of Unicode characters to ensure it handles them correctly. By understanding these concepts and following these best practices, you can effectively handle Unicode strings in urllib requests and avoid common problems that often appear on Stack Overflow. Good luck.